right, welcome to Tailgate Talk. It's Shaun Ritter, Eric Tasker. We're both remote today separately because secret time. We usually record our show a day or two before it airs on the actual station, and I'm in the middle of like my late season must punch a tag hunting time, so I'm remote. So this is kind of where we're at. So this is going to be interesting. But
I've got my like little bit of a cold going on, so I'm also just sticking at home this week. And so if I sound a little different, I'm a little congested still. But I figured it was just safer to stay away from the office.
That's a really good idea, and that's what I thought. I got a case of the I need to be in the woods itis.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're going to go over some of the wrap up of the final of gun deer season. The numbers are out, and we kind of discuss a little about that. Obviously, being in southeast Wisconsin or anywhere in the state of Wisconsin, you've noticed the weather's changed. Things are getting colder. In fact, as I was headed out of the woods today, I go past a lake that was near where I was hunting, and Heinz, quiet. They have dogs. This is how fun this is going to be.
This is going to be great. I love this.
There was a layer of ice on the lake. So ice fishing is not too far away from us. And so the thought is going to be, what happens when you start getting the ice? What do you got to think about? Early ice safety is a huge, huge thing, because I know it's so easy to, you don't do it for so many months, and it's like, oh, I want to get back in the ice, and you don't think about the little things. So we'll run down just kind of some reminders of that stuff throughout the show here. And Wisconsin DNR this week doing something that I think is really cool, having to do with its campgrounds. Like, super, super cool. And we're going to talk about that kind of as we get to the end of the show here. But what do you think? How was the gun deer season, or the last couple of days, in the outdoors for you, Tasker?
Yeah, it was good. I'm glad that you were kind enough to invite me along and tag along, and went out and sat for a morning over the Thanksgiving weekend. It was cool just to kind of get an in-person look at kind of where you're at and what you're doing out in the woods. And I mean, boy, I had a couple of hesitations going into it, thinking, I have no idea what I'm walking into here. It's going to be daylight, and I'm going to be like, oh, this is where I'm hunting.
Yeah.
But I think I was, I sent you a picture, and I was maybe 12 yards off of the main trail that was going right through there. I was right next to a scrape. I had a doe that had never had a deer that close to me ever in the woods before.
Oh,
besides
really?
one that was actually harvested. I mean, it was underneath my tree stand. I kind of sent you that video, and it's like, geez. I
didn't know you've never had one that close to you before. I mean,
yeah, it was crazy. I mean, I shot a doe 2 years ago at like 11 yards. So, I mean, that was very close. That's close enough. And this one was directly under my stand. So, yeah, I mean, it was great. I wish I would have been able to punch the tag for you and help fill some of those antlerless tags that you've got. But but a couple of things happened. One, I mean, there was a fawn with it. I feel like that's kind of a rule of thumb for me, is that I just don't really ever shoot a doe that's got a fawn with. And when I turned around to grab my bow, I somehow the zipper right around my boot got caught in my tree stand, and I couldn't completely turn around. So there was like a lot of chaos very quickly, but it was great, man. It was a lot of fun. And, hopefully we can get out a couple more times. And I know you're pretty active right now getting out there, and I feel like you don't have that much more time. I'm seeing all my friends in the Northwoods that are all out on the ice already. They've got a couple inches up there. So every time I see that, I think of you, because I know you got the itch big time. So
I know. I'm starting to learn, this is kind of like really the first like hardcore archery season that I've like really committed to. Like really any kind of like fully committed season after deer. Like I said,
yeah.
I've hunted them earlier in my life, but it was just kind of like opening weekend or here that, it wasn't real serious, it was
sure
gun hunting. So it was just kind of like an afterthought, but I'm like really diving in and really focusing this year. So like, I think it's been a super successful year. I've had a lot of fun. I've passed on so many shots and so many potential deer. And so like to me, just seeing and getting that close, you mentioned being close to deer. I mean, I had deer under me a lot of times. I've been able to get into and out of places. I've never spooked a single deer. I haven't had one blow at me. I mean, I think I've really made some of the right moves. I had my chance at that monster, which is still haunting me every single day. I think back to that and I'm like, man, that was a deer of a lifetime, which is why, like, there's that negative part of me that I go, I never deserved to shoot that animal. I should have never even seen that deer, because this is my first, like, really diving into it, and I was that lucky to
Right.
get a chance. It's just, I'm absolutely blown away at the tag experience. So even if I don't punch a tag, it's been super successful, and I've already learned so much that I think going into next year is going to make me that much more lethal.
Yeah.
Like I already there's like one last Hail Mary that I still have left on that property you came with me
Yeah.
that I almost thought about this week, but I really want to wait and save that until like January, or if I get like a day here in December where I get a couple of days where it's like around 0 overnight, it's just that frigid cold. I think I know a spot where there's a bunch of them, or that big one might be holed up and just hanging out. And I don't want to risk getting too close to it now. I'd rather
Sure.
wait till it's like cold where he's going to get off his feet because he's got to go find some food. Because obviously when they're cold, they burn more calories. So I'm
Yeah.
I'm hanging on to that thought, but it would be nice to put a doe in the freezer just to at least get some venison. But if it doesn't happen,
Sure.
it doesn't happen. It just wasn't in the cards. I learned a ton, and it's been an awesome season. And as I look at the numbers here, the final numbers that came back from the DNR, it's kind of shocking to me. Just looking at what I would consider not just low harvest numbers, but like the fact that antlerless were so low this year compared to
So off.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I saw that where compared to last year. So in total for the firearms specific season, it was down almost 8%, 7.9%. And then buck harvest was just down slightly. I mean, you could almost call that flat, 1.3% down. But the antlerless is what made that difference, is that 13.2%. So, I don't know. It's interesting. And that's just specifically from the firearm season. So we're not even talking about before and after, which I was talking to Sherry about that last night. And, we could touch on that in a second. But I mean, why do you think that is for gun season? Numbers were relatively flat for total license sales?
Kind of looking at the breakdown, like by, the areas that they are, if you look at the percent change, the northern forest zone, they were up. I mean, it looks like especially the bucks in the northern forest zone was up 14.9%, and the central and southern zones were down a lot. To me, it looks like the majority of the deer harvested, the majority of the action was in the northern part of the state. The southern part of the state, everything was down. Again, maybe we go back to my theory we talked about in last week's show, and we mentioned just general harvest and sales of things. The southern half of the state tends to be more of the urban type communities. You've got
Sure.
Madison, you've got Milwaukee, you've got a lot of that in the southern parts of the state. So you've just got kind of the more sprawling concrete jungle where maybe those people that, have jobs work in, these cities got out and hunted last year and didn't this year, or were successful last year because they hunted more days than they did this year.
Sure.
I think there's a part of that could play into all of that. Because again, I think the numbers that we mentioned for sales of licenses themselves weren't too far off, but I still think it's the fact that people may have bought more licenses last year. More people were outdoors last year. They stayed and bought licenses again this year, but they might not have been out as much. So again, you just think about the probability. The more you're out, the more chances you have to harvest. You do the math on that. So maybe that's playing somewhat into it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just reading through this here, and Adams County Central Farmland led the state with over 9 deer registered per square mile. I mean, that's insane. That's an aggressive number. I mean, that's really good. And then I even see right where I hunt in the Eau Claire Central Forest Central Forest area, registered almost 3.5 deer per square mile. So, I mean, I'm happy to say that I was able to contribute to that number, both myself and my dad. So that's good. I mean, I feel like that's, I don't know what that, compares to for other years, but, I don't know. I mean, 3.5 deer for every square mile. I mean, I feel like that's a pretty solid number.
I would agree with that.
So,
did you also notice when it comes to the overall like harvest, they break down by total of the season and then just during the gun deer season, those early that bow season is becoming a bigger and bigger player.
Yeah. You know what that's what I was going to say that I was talking to Sherry about is that, you know what I think could be a part of it too. I know that there are more people that are going to be out hunting during that bow season, that early season. But what is not really factored in, and as people just see these numbers come through, is they hear, all of those numbers, but then, why are they off? What people aren't factoring in, that aren't like within the community, that just hear the reports on the news, is that it takes so much more skill to be able to harvest an animal during the bow season. So yeah, there may be a ton more people that are out there, but the opportunities are much less. You have to be within 35 or 45 yards at the most for I would say the majority of people. And really it could be like as close as 20 yards, for some of the amateur, or like elementary hunters that are out there. It's just, you don't get as many of those opportunities as you would as shooting a rifle across a farm field,
Right.
So I wonder
I saw
how
a
that
TikTok.
factors into too. Yeah.
I saw TikTok this
I've
past
sent
week
you a
of
couple
like
good
there
ones.
was
Yeah.
a guy that was out there. Oh, I got it at like 675, and he drops this doe, and they're like laughing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, see, this is the problem, and I'm gonna sound all elitist now, but this is the problem with rifle hunting, and where I'm sorry, it's easy. It's way too easy. It's to sit
Yeah.
across a field and plug something from 300-400 yards away with a
I
scope.
know.
Whereas archery, you've got to be you have to outsmart that animal.
I know.
340 yards, that deer might not even know that you exist. So you're just blindly harvesting it. Whereas
Right.
with a bow, you have to outsmart that. It's such a chess game. It's one on
There's
one.
an intimacy to it.
That's why I love it, and I'm all in, and I am so in love with archery hunting because of that. I love that intimate part. Again, of all the deer that I've passed on, just having them that close to me and watching them.
Man,
and,
it's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's such a quick adrenaline rush, and it's come and gone in the blink of an eye most times. I mean, especially like the first doe that I saw when I was with you. I mean, it came screaming through at like 85 yards, stopped behind a tree, took off again, stopped again behind a tree, and then, went off. And it's like, man, even just that little bit. Boy, you talking about being cold out there, and then you just see a deer and it warms you up. You get all that adrenaline pumping through. It's like the best thing. I mean, you could talk about toe warmers, hand warmers, whatever. The best cure for that is seeing an animal. Because no matter what, I mean, you're going to stand up, you're going to get excited, the blood's going to start pumping. And it's like the biggest blessing while you're out there and you're cold is that just getting an opportunity to see one of them. But you're right. I mean, just being able to see how they interact and how they walk through and how they behave and all of that stuff. It is such a, I don't want to say magical, but it's such a, like a very, very like back to our roots, like such a, I don't know, primal thing that you just get to be able to witness that. And it's like, man, you just get these different instincts that you never really knew. And you just you could think about it a million times in your head what you're going to do until you're in that situation. I mean, you just never know how it's going to unfold.
You panic and shoot a tree.
Yes. Right. Right. Yeah.
We're going to circle back to a comment you just made there with that, but we take a quick break here. Continue more of Tailgate Talk next right here. Of course, Tailgate Talk is brought to you by Buck Rub Outfitters. Of course, our friends at Buck Rub Archery, fantastic. They carry the best names in all archery equipment, whether it's bows or just general equipment. Get you set up. Their staff is fantastic. They've got 3 great ranges. I know we shoot at their outdoor course all the time. They got a great indoor range and 3D video scenes. They're perfect for parties, anniversaries, group get-togethers. They can take care of you for anything. And as far as servicing your bow, their attention to detail and everything they do is amazing. Check them out, buckrubarchery.com, or get on over to their shop. They're just off of Silvernail Road in Pewaukee. This is Tailgate Talk. Find us on socials at On The Tailgate. I'm Shaun Ritter at The Real Ritter, like a fishing reel, and Eric Tasker today at ET5504. You want to check him out. Wags out. We are actually both remote. Tasker at home. I am at home as well. I know you can hear my son yelling in the background.
Stop talking.
Daddy's trying to do a show. That's why Daddy's talking.
I love this.
You want to say hi to Mr. Tasker? Wave and say hi.
Hi, Mr. Tasker.
Hey, buddy. Oh, I suppose you probably can't hear me because you got the headphones.
Yeah. All right. Before you mentioned Tasker, you had said how the quickest way to warm up when you're in the woods is seeing an animal, like seeing a deer, and you like instantly get warm. The same theory to me applies when you're ice fishing. You could be freezing cold out on the ice, and as soon as a flag goes off and a tip up, you instantly are just like warm. You're running to the flag, and your hands are instantly warm too. All right, you want to sit down and be a part of the show? All right. All right. He's been a part of my other radio shows anyway. So your daddy want to talk about deer? All right. You want to tell this? So when daddy comes pick you up from school when he's deer hunting, what does daddy have on his face?
Pink face.
Paint face? Daddy has paint face? And what does daddy use to climb trees?
A real pie.
Yeah, what do you want? What do you want to use to climb trees?
He used it to get some pink face.
What about daddy's climbing sticks?
Nice climbing stick and bow.
Yeah, his bow and climbing sticks. Kids are so great. Like he keeps asking all the time. He's like, "Daddy, I need my bow and my climbing sticks, and we're gonna go hunting."
I
And I'm
love
like,
that.
4 years old, man. We're doing something right.
Oh, that's hilarious.
All right, buddy. You want to say goodbye and we can get back to the show here?
Bye.
Bye.
So I mentioned ice fishing because we're not too far from it. You brought that up, and figure it's kind of that time of year as we start thinking about as you're dragging all the ice fishing stuff out. First time on the ice, some safety in things you go through. I know, like me personally, I know Wags and I have talked about this. I want to say it was like last year's we're getting ready for ice season on this show.
Yeah.
You know, so it's never too much to keep bringing it up. But I wear a float suit. I carry my ice picks, and first time ever out on the ice, and pretty much throughout the first month or so, I've got my spud bar with, and everywhere I'm going, as I walk out, I'm hitting my spud bar. If I can hit it twice on the ice and it doesn't go through, I proceed forward, 3-4 more steps. Again, smash it twice. If it doesn't go through, I can, realistically, 4 inches is safest ice to go on. I know there's a lot of guys, you mentioned some friends up in far northern Wisconsin lakes that were already out like a week and a half ago on very thin ice.
It's crazy.
Yeah, 4 inches is really what they say. I've been on 3-ish, and it can feel a little sketch. Once you start getting closer to that 6 inches, then you get close to what I would call snowmobile territory. Over 6, you start to lean toward, smaller ATVs. Growing up, we drove vehicles on the ice a lot. I don't ever anymore. I walk everywhere onto the ice.
Oh. Just everything about this gives me anxiety. And I know people do it all the time. It's just, I don't know, man. It's so crazy to me that people still drive their vehicles out there. Like, I mean, you think about it, those things aren't light, and I get it. 6 inches or more of ice is a lot, but
12 inches, the kind of the recommendation on, a small pickup. So when you start getting toward your bigger pickups, you got to be more than that. And I've been on 2 feet of ice many times, growing up again, Green Bay, fishing in the Bay of Green Bay. And, there's a lot of ice and a lot of space, but also up there, you've got a lot of the ice shove situation. Ice can get away. I remember we had a situation literally while we were doing this show, back in, was it March? My brother was on the ice fishing and a crack opened up right next to him. And they were actually on one of the ice sheets that was floating out. They walked 100 yards down and jumped across the pressure crack with their stuff. And they got off, and that was the one big one that broke away, and they had to rescue like 80 some people, with a boat.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I was thinking, I don't know if I sent you this or not, but now people that the ice is starting to come. Of course, you start seeing all these ridiculous videos.
Yeah.
So the spud bar that you're talking about, because I'm not super familiar with ice fishing, that's your long stick that you're able to try and jab and check the ice, right?
Long, heavy steel rod with a chisel on the end of it.
It's like a javelin, basically.
Yeah, that's a great description.
Yeah.
It's a long spear.
Yeah, so I saw a video, and there's always these knuckleheads that just think they need to get out super early. I mean, this guy was probably 50-ish feet away from where the guy was recording, and he's jumping up and down on the ice, and you can see it. I'm like, come on, man. I'm just waiting for you to fall right through the middle of that hole that you're jumping on. And you just see the whole lake just vibrate or wave with him. I'm like, come on, man. This is that's the stuff that gives me anxiety, and it's all the reasons that I just have not grown this fondness of ice fishing, because there's all these crazy people out there.
Yeah, the having the spikes, like I wear mine around my neck. Those are if you were to go through to help you get out of the ice.
Yep.
Obviously I mentioned the float suit. If you don't have a float suit, I strongly recommend first time out on the ice, wear a personal flotation device. Take one of the ones that you have out of the boat. The one that I use in my kayak, the inflatable one. I wore one of those for years before I had float suit. I mean, float suits now are so common. Every manufacturer, everybody makes them. The price of them come down drastically from when they first, were released onto the market. So I almost think at this point a float suit is pretty easy to come by. there's if you're going to buy a suit or something for ice fishing, there's no point to buy one that's not float. I mean, the price is almost so close that just the float is so much. It's worth it.
Yeah.
And then one of the throwable life ropes. These things are awesome. It's kind of like a small pack. You can buy them.
Sure.
At Fleet Farms, anywhere would sell them. That has a rope in it, so you can pull the rope out of it and then throw this little kind of like floaty pack towards the person who can grab it, wrap it around themselves. You can take the rope from a distance and help pull them out, or at minimum, just carry a rope with you in case you're in a situation to help someone else out.
So what's your go-to pack of necessities aside from that you bring with you out on the ice? I'm sure you got a thermos. You've got a nice big thermos full of hot coffee.
Yes.
I know you well enough to know that you've got that.
Always a thermos full of coffee.
I've got my other things.
My bait bucket full of bait. Depending if I'm going to run tip-ups, I might run some minnows. Otherwise, I've got my bait puck that I fill up with wax worms or spikes. And I actually run a lot of plastics too. I'll do like just small little plastics and stuff. John, who we had him from Clam Pro Tackle, talked to him some of the great clam products that they have. Some of their little like Mackie bugs and other things. Those things work awesome with the guys. If you don't have to buy bait, just soft plastics, just like you would bass fishing, crappie fishing, anything like that.
Oh, so you brought up tip ups. That was one thing I was going to wait to ask you about. So are you more a tip up ice fisherman, or are you more jigging on a little short baby reel that I always see? Which one do you do more of?
It depends on the day. It depends on the situation. A lot of times when it's just me up on myself, I'll usually like be in my shack or like, kind of sitting, I'll use my shack as a wind bracelet or just kind of sit around and I'll jig there and run the 2 tip ups out. I just kind of like to spread things out just a bit. I mean, there is sometimes we're bringing a group of people out and it's just like, I'm not worried about, I'm just setting all tip ups and we're going to sit around just kind of more of a social event, type situation. And that, I mean, you can run tip ups for, panfish. I've done it all the time, growing up, we used to catch perch all the time with tip ups. I've run tip ups for crappies, so you don't have to think of tip ups as just for, walleyes and pike. You can, use them to just kind of spread yourself out. I mean, nowadays with the way electronics have went in the introduction of, like Mega 360, some of the live active target and live sonars, it's just blows my mind how different it is. And that it's actually an article that I did write on my site back, it was last March, actually, was talking with that. Like it was that analysis by paralysis thing. Like I remember growing up as a kid, you just walk out onto a lake and you're like, this spot looks good. And you just set up and you catch fish. And like now we have all this technology that I feel like it's just me.
You can overthink
I catch less fish now because I'm so caught up in all this technology crap and like, I got to map out to go to this exact spot, following my GPS and go to here and follow this line, where it's just like just shot in the dark, throw your stuff out there and fish and enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah. It takes you back to just like your younger days of fishing when you had no idea you were going to just go out and you wet a line and throw some stuff out there and see what happens. And that's what kind of makes it fun, is just the mystery of it too. So
my main experience of growing up fishing was less of fishing for me. I was extra limit because there was a lot more of that situation going on.
Sure.
I'm sure, with
that makes
my old
sense.
Man. Those were also the days when you could be on the Bay of Green Bay and you could fill 5-gallon buckets full of perch. The limit were, I think, a person back then.
Wow. That's crazy.
I mean, I remember just sitting around after fishing and, for hours just cleaning perch. It's mind blowing to think that there was a time in our lives where that's how it was.
I know.
Smelt's another thing. And we're going out smelting, in the spring, dip nets in the creeks and stuff, and then spending hours at the table with a pair of scissors, snip the belly, snip the head, or snip the beds, snip the belly, and just clean and smelt for, it would seem like hours on end.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, it's interesting, and that's why there's so much thought that goes into all of this for setting limits and setting harvest limits, and why they have restrictions on how many buck or doe tags or any of that stuff that there are out there, because they want to try and keep that population of whatever kind of wild animals that are out there, at a healthy level, so that, the fishing experiences can continue with that. And that, when people are out hunting, that they continue to see deer. And, there's so much that goes into it, so that they hope that, the conservationists are out there and they're doing everything in the best interest of their people that are out there trying to fill limits and, explore nature and enjoy the outdoors. But that's something that, you got to make sure is kept up with, and all the studies and that the DNR does, that they're making the right estimates in terms of all of that stuff. But I feel like, I don't know for sure, but I feel like the deer limit is always pretty much the same. I mean, there's always doe tags, antlerless tags that are typically made available. They might go up or down. But I feel like the fish limits don't change very often, do they? I mean, they stay relatively
not really.
consistent
It's
for
all
a
just
long time.
harvest data and things like that. Waterfowl, those numbers are all set. That's kind of a national thing, because
Sure.
each state can't do their own thing because it's a migratory